Welcome back to the Real Estate 401k Show. I'm your host, Mike Weinstein. All the way down at the end is Justin Frederick, and sitting in for Ryan Gertis this week is our good friend Anthony Cucci with HCP Inspections. If you've ever done a transaction with us, you've done a home inspection, and Anthony and his crew have been the people that you have spoken and working with. So you're going to want to go ahead and text the word new to 623AZ-RECON. We're going to talk about getting home inspections on new builds in just a minute. But today is April 15th, tax day.
Oh, boy.
You guys get your taxes in?
I sure did. Last minute. Last week.
All right, good talk, Anthony.
My check is not quite cut yet.
Yeah, so we get the same email from our accountant, Cindy, and she's like, so we doing extensions again? And then I'm like, yes. Yeah. And then my wife gets mad at me because she doesn't like to do extensions. And I'm like, then take over my finances, and then we can get it done early.
You'd be okay with that, wouldn't you?
I am the worst. Like, I'm the worst. When Ryan and I partnered up, I just said, listen, I said, I bring a lot to the table, and you obviously bring a lot to the table, but you don't want me doing the books.
I always owe, so I tend to write the check at the very last minute, and it just has to be postmarked by today. So I show up at the post office.
Yeah, just get extensions. That's how you roll. Anyway, so we're going to talk about new builds and home inspections. I think there are a lot of people, most people understand that if you're going to buy a home on the resale market, buy it from somebody who's already lived in the house. The normal chain of events, you get a home inspection, you hire a home inspection. But I think for a lot of people, they think that if I'm buying a new build, the house is going to be in impeccable condition and there's not going to be any issues with it. And so I don't need a home inspection. And so, Anthony, we did one for our clients a couple weeks ago. And first of all, that home inspector, he was amazing. But he started finding things that I've been doing this for 22 plus years, started finding things that I didn't even knew could possibly exist. I mean, he was crawling under everything, how important it is for home inspections on new builds, and kind of walk us through that process.
Yeah, I think they're really important. The dynamic changes. So I think it goes from a traditional, let's say, used home to a new builder. You're looking at a lot of different things. You're looking at workmanship, and that's where really we're important, right? Workmanship, completion of work. In the new build era today, it's not only material that there's a shortage of, but it's workers too.
And quality workers.
Quality workers. And so the crew that starts a job isn't necessarily the crew that finishes a job. And so you're looking for discrepancies. And, for that point, we are crawling through things that we normally wouldn't be able to access and doing things like that for sure.
Yeah, and he was also giving me ideas because the garage, certain portions of the garage were chipped. In my mind, it's, the garage floor is it's not as big of a deal. You're not living in it. You're parking your cars in there. And he goes, yeah, just get the builder to put some epoxy coating down. I'm like, that's a freaking great idea. So that's what we're going to go fight for.
Yeah, it's a free upgrade. It's a lot better than doing a parge coat or redoing the cement work there for sure.
And then the client's happy too. At that point, you get an epoxy coating on your floor.
Well, we haven't quite successable navigated that,
that's what that's what you do.
It's what we do.
Yeah.
Justin, have you purchased a new build before?
In 2006, I purchased a new build, but I would never. So, my father-in-law was a contractor, and let's see, 2026, I was 25 years old when I bought that house, and my father-in-law took me over there, and he brought a sledgehammer with him, and we went after hours, and he just started busting boards that shouldn't be there, and they're going to have to replace that one. They're going to need to replace that one, and he just made sure that they were going to have to replace it by busting some of the studs that were in the wall, and he checked all the electrical stuff, and he ripped some electrical out that wasn't in greatest shape, and he walked us through everything. But I wonder how much he missed. And one of the things that we hear as a lender is when you're going through your final walkthrough, or you haven't even got there, and there's problems, and And I think actually Anthony's found a lot of these problems, and so it's delayed portions of our closings, but for the right reasons. Yeah, I mean, you would never think that buying something brand new, like you're buying a new car, that it's not done exactly the same through each and every house, but you get different contractors in, they got to follow.
You would think they had it down.
You would think they would have it down,
Right.
But we're human beings, right? People try to skip steps or try to make things easier for themselves sometimes, or forget a step because they left here one day and they came back the next day trying to find out where they left off. And
Well, what drives me nuts about it is that some of these trades, when they're installing stuff or constructing portions of the house, they've got to know that it's not going to pass and it's not going to fly, and they're going to have to come back out. So just do it right in the first place. Some of the things that I've seen, I'm sure you've seen some crazy things, Anthony.
Yeah, in fairness, though, like I said, I mean, there's such a shortage of workers out there that, they'll be on a job and then maybe they'll get pulled halfway through that job to go finish a rush job over here. And it's not the same crew that comes back and left off where they left off. And so it's just, a combination of like different crews, different companies.
Yeah, but I had one, this was a couple years ago. And we went to do the final walkthrough, and in the master bathroom, they had backsplash. And they had two different types of backsplash. The left side, it was its own different backsplash. It was apparent that they ran out, and then they threw in a completely different color. And someone said, hey, nobody's going to notice?
Yeah. Well, I think what we get a lot is a lot of times we'll point out deficiencies, and we're not knocking down boards or anything like that, right? We don't have the luxury of bringing a sledgehammer with us. But what happens a lot of times with us is we'll point out the deficiencies, and the builders are real good at, hey, we'll get that during warranty. It'll delay closing, and they kind of scare the buyer into like pushing that off to a warranty issue. And that's really where, having a good representative and pushing that to get repaired prior to closing really comes into play.
All righty. If you'd like some more information about getting a home inspection on a new build, a resale, a commercial building, multifamily, Anthony's company at HCP Inspections does it all. All you got to do is text the word new to 623-AZ-RECON. That's new to 623-AZ-RECON. The advantage of a new build, getting a home inspection, especially new constructions when they don't even have a slab poured down yet, is when I buy a resale house, there is really no way to tell what's inside those walls and what's inside that attic to a degree. A lot of times you can't get to portions of the attic. And so unlike a regular residential resale home inspection, the inspector comes out one time, inspects it, and then we go through our negotiating process, you have the option on a new build inspection to do it at different phases, because oftentimes what you can't see can really hurt you down the road.
Yeah, I mean,
especially with trusses. You and I, we go way back when it comes down to trusses.
I think that was like our first deficiency that we found, right? Like, yeah, I think you get to see the skeleton of the house, and I think it's super important to do that. You get to see things that you would never be able to see normally. Plumbing situations, how they're cutting the framing to work the plumbing, nail plates, things like that can cause issues down the road. Maybe a nail plate pinches a wire, and you don't find out until 6 months after you move in. A lot of that comes into play, and that's really what we're looking for. We get to see the house in about 4 or 5 different stages, and it gives us an opportunity to say, hey, this is what it was like in the framing. This is this is the cause of an effect after drywall, and we kind of put the puzzle together for everybody. And it's the same person that goes out, right? The same person that goes out and does the pre-drywall, goes out and does the plumbing and post-drywall and final walk. And so he has a picture of what the house looks like and the way it's built.
Now, I can't speak for the rest of the country, but in Arizona, I mean, let's just face it, you're a home inspector, and builders don't like you. They don't necessarily. Well, I don't like you. But,
that's not fair.
But they don't want builders coming in,
yeah.
And they oftentimes, first of all, they make you sometimes jump through a tremendous amount of hoops, but oftentimes they'll scare buyers into saying, yeah, you can't have a home inspector there.
Well, they can't stop it, but what they
But
can
they
do
can
is
tell you that you can't.
They can put barriers in place, and we'll speak to Arizona specifically. Arizona has a $500,000 requirement for home inspectors from an E&O standpoint, right? So errors and emission insurance is $500,000. A couple years ago, we saw new builders bump that up to $1 million. It's currently around the $2 million mark. So it prices a lot of individual home inspectors, like one-off home inspectors, out of the picture because they can't afford a $2 million policy when the state requires less than a third of that. And so they price them out. And then the other thing is the insurance requirements. I mean, we've had weird requests all the way up to providing proof of health insurance, and which I don't understand because we have a workman's comp policy and they don't see it the same. So they make it really difficult for us to go out there. And then it's the he said, she said, like, well, that's, we're building to code and that's fine. We're not going to repair these items. But at that point, it's really important to have like good representation. Right?
Yeah, and and Justin, like in this scenario from our investor last week, I'm pretty good at catching stuff. I mean, I've been doing this a long time, but I'm not an inspector. I'm not going to be climbing up in the attic. I'm not going to be climbing up in the roof, which, by the way, broken tiles on the roof. Imagine buying a brand new house, missing underlayment and some broken tiles.
Or tiles that haven't even been installed.
So that is absolutely maddening. So yes, getting a home inspection, especially on a new build, it costs you money. But when you are not a trained professional, you don't know what to look for. And you either pay now or you pay a lot more money down the road. And how you pay a lot more money down the road is when you go to sell the house, and that buyer hires a home inspector, and he goes through and catches this and this and this and this, which should have been caught when the buyer originally bought it from the builder.
I mean, how do you put no underlayment on the
It
roof?
was just portions were missing.
Oh,
Yeah.
still. I mean,
We've been up on roofs where they forgot to lay out portions of the tile. It's like a multi-staggered roof, and portions of the tile just weren't laid out.
what's the worst thing you've seen on a new build?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would say the roof tile is probably one of the biggest ones.
Right, because that could destroy the house.
That could destroy everything. And it could destroy everything during the build, right? So the roof's not properly insulated. Everything kind of comes through. The attic gets moisture damaged. I would say the roof is probably the worst.
What's the biggest jerry rig you've seen on a new build? What kind of duct tape did we have to use?
I would say plumbing, right? Like we've come into situations where people use the wrong fittings just to make it look like it's closed, and they use a 1/4 inch fitting on the bottom and a 3/4 inch on top, and nobody knows the difference. And then all of a sudden they moved in, the drywall's up, they go to take a bath, and it just floods the wall. So plumbing's usually the most jerry rigged that we've come across. It's pretty bad.
So one more thing, because you brought it up. Okay, so like in that situation, there's one thing, getting the builder to fix it before you close escrow, and that's why you hire a real estate wealth manager to walk you through that process. Not that the builder won't fix it post-close, but they've already got their dough. And there's the number one motivating thing in the world is burgers and dough.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. You forgot the McRib for you.
Yeah, I would say, in my experience, warranty is la land. They'll get to you when they get to you. It's not going to be fast. And so if you can avoid anything going to warranty, anything getting pushed off, and builders, I feel like they do that. They use scare tactics like, it's going to cause delay in closing. We'll delay it because then it'll get fixed right. And that's my opinion on it.
All right, I lied. Last thing. You and I, we developed a strategy. You and I did this years ago. We're not saying we're the only ones that use it. But one of the strategies we implemented and I use today, whether it's a new build or a resale, if that inspection report comes back with serious issues, and I consider AC unit not working properly as a serious issue or anything that's of safety concern, and we know that we're going to require the seller to fix it, I put them on notice. It costs my clients some extra money, and people don't know you can do this, but we're going to have our home inspector go back out 3 days prior to close of escrow to verify everything's working properly. It puts the seller on notice that I've got to take care of this. But a lot of buyers aren't aware of that.
Yeah, and I take credit. I steal your thunder all the time. I pose that as my idea, like I came up with it. But I think it's a great idea. It holds their feet to the fire that somebody from a professional standpoint is going to be looking at the repairs, right? And I think it's a genius tactic. Whether you use us or not on the back end, just holding their feet to the fire and letting them know that somebody might be coming out. It prevents, their cousin's brother's best friend from doing the work and getting it done.
All right, Anthony Cucci with HCP Inspections. If you're looking at getting a home inspection, whether on a new build, resale, multifamily, or commercial, we want you to go ahead and text the word new to 623-AZ-RECON. That's new to 623-AZ-RECON.
Thank you for joining us on the Real Estate 401k Show. If you want more information on how to build wealth, click on the link or text us at 623-297-3266. That's 623-AZ-RECON.